We have an important hearing today. We've had an important week. We've had a number of hearings that have been very important. Today we're talking about the cost of health care in our country, and it's because it's growing at an unsustainable rate. Congressional Budget Office reported the federal government will spend $1 trillion on Medicare, Medicaid, and other health care programs. The CBO also reported that in 10 years' time, that cost will double, roughly $2 trillion. The costs for prescription drugs are a substantial portion of the federal health care expenditures. In 2014, the federal government paid out just over $77 billion in Medicare Part D prescription drug benefits, and clearly, it's very difficult to sustain this. One way that affects the costs of prescription drugs is to increase access to generic drugs and drugs that have been on the market for some time. Now, our committee is very fortunate to have one pharmacist. I think there's one pharmacist in the United States Congress. He happens to sit on our panel, and so I'd like to yield a minute to Mr. Buddy Carter from Georgia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm disgusted that we're here today to talk about drug price increases. As a pharmacist for over 30 years, I've owned and operated numerous pharmacies in southeast Georgia. As the only pharmacist in Congress, I know free market principles are the best way to provide quality, affordable health care to the American people. But what was done here is different. Perverse business practices were employed to exploit a patient group trying to do nothing more than to extend their lives. None of the witnesses here today have had to look into the eyes of someone who's trying to make a decision between buying groceries and buying medication. No one here today has seen the look on a mother's face when she realizes that she can't afford to buy her child's medication. I have. But as a healthcare professional, I've worked with these people in order to make sure that they can get their medications and to make sure that my business and my employees stay afloat. So some here today may hide behind their shareholders or their corporate boards and say that this is just free market principles. But I, for one, don't agree with that. I'll tell you that you can meet your shareholders' needs, that you can meet your board's needs, and still take care of the American public. But then again, I'm not sure that those who are hiding behind their shareholders and their boards really care about that. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Thank the gentleman. The FDA, the Federal Drug Administration, is responsible for approving applications to manufacture generic drugs, but is drowning in a backlog of applications. In an attempt to deal with the backlog, Congress passed unanimously out of the House by voice vote, and with only one dissenting vote in the Senate, as I recall, the Generic Drug User Fee Act in 2012. The act promised shorter wait times, but required applicants to pay $1.5 billion in user fees over a 5-year period. Despite these fees and their promises, the FDA still has a backlog of more than 3,700 generic drug applications. The basic premise here, I think, is one of basic economics. If you have somebody who rapidly dramatically increases the price of a prescription drug, that's going to invite more competition. But if that competition can't get the approval from the FDA, then there is no competition, and the price will be inelastic and it will continue to rise. So most of my questions today are actually for the FDA and what they're doing to accelerate that process. I believe that the FDA has failed to meet its statutory responsibility. It is dramatically behind in its processing. A good example of how valuable a shortened FDA review process has become is the program that offers priority review vouchers. Because the FDA review process can be so time-consuming, drug companies have been paying outrageous sums for these vouchers. Last year, one of these vouchers sold for $350 million. But these vouchers only speed up the process by roughly 4 months. That means at least one applicant was willing to pay $2 million a day just for an additional 120 days. Given these facts, it's pretty obvious our current review process for generic drug applications is too slow. Along with the FDA, we have representatives from two drug manufacturers here today. Touring Pharmaceuticals purchased the prescription drug Daraprim and raised the price per pill from $13.50 to more than $750. Valiant Pharmaceuticals CEO is also here to explain how his company bought heart drugs Nitropress and Isoprel and raised their prices 525 and 212%, respectively. All three of these drugs lacked any generic competition, even though the patent had expired and they're available for generic versions. I look forward to the hearing from all witnesses today. I also want to thank Ranking Member Cummings, who's been very passionate on this issue and very insistent that we have this hearing, and I'm glad that we did this together. And I now yield the time and recognize Mr. Cummings for 5 minutes.